Καλησπέρα και καλώς ήρθατε.
Good evening. Welcome to the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Cultural Center. I'm Athina Balopoulou, Head of Marketing Communication of the Cultural Center. I have the great joy to host you here on behalf of the Cultural Center, but also through internet for those who are away. Today's event and today's day is the completion of the 5-year celebrational program that was launched on February 17, as completed today, on the occasion of the 5 years from the delivery of the foundation to the Greek state from the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. Therefore, today, last day of the events, we have the training session on the title 2006-2016, the construction of the Cultural Center as a field of construction, the vision and construction innovations. This one-day conference started with labs from Agis Mourelatis and Spiros Agetakis, the landscape architect, Madam Spiropoulou, and Dr. Konstantinos Paschalidis, who is civil engineer. Then we had speed mentoring, again addressed to students from Margarita Venturaki and Fedon Perakis, architects, landscape architect Elli Pagalou, and civil engineer Mr. Penelis. So we're here with a discussants panel, which will be completing this day, and we are honored by Vassily Laffineur, Theodore Maravelias, both architects, and head of donation Stavros Niarchos, Elli Pagalou, who is landscape architect, co-designer along with Deborah Nevins for the Stavros Niarchos Park, and Gregory Penelis, who is civil engineer responsible for structural design of the Canopy. The panel will be coordinated by the photographer and architect Yiorgis Yerolympos, who is intrinsically linked with the Cultural Center from the very first inception, the first day of the construction to date. So before giving the floor to Yiorgis and the participants, I would like to give the floor to Elli Andriopoulou, who is the CEO of the Cultural Center, for a brief greeting. Good evening. I'm extremely glad because on the occasion of the 5-year operation of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Cultural Center, we remember again the innovations, planning and construction of the project, because I had been extremely fortunate to follow closely all those constructions and fully understand how important those innovations were. Today's speakers that bestow us such an honor will share details of what was planned and constructed here. I'm certain that you will understand, both you here and those in the internet, is that the excellent result is not only what was planned and what was constructed, but actually the way it was constructed. Stavros Niarchos Foundation selected one of the best architects worldwide, Renzo Piano, and his team, a team with an extremely human-centered approach that fully understood and implemented the plan. And as you hear from Mr. Vassily Laffineur, the goal was always the use, the beauty, the sustainability, and the excellent top standards on every level. Madam Elli Pagalou will describe the planning for the most favorite and popular part of the center, the park that dubbed the green surface for the whole area. We close cooperate with Madam Pagalou, who continues to follow closely the course of the park and consult us. Mr. Gregory Penelis will speak of the 10-strema energy canopy that hangs above the place we are here today, which considered state-of-the-art innovation. I remember during the work site, hundreds of workers that would more embroider the tissue and then would imbue into cement and then weigh. Mr. Maravelias, who is the technical director of Stavros Niarchos, was a coordinator, know every millimeter of the project. He'll present the management of such a complex work that was completed within the timetable and within the budget, how all the participants participated, both domestically and from abroad, and how there was full transparency vis-à-vis all the directions and guidelines on the construction. Mr. Yerolympos, who will be coordinating the discussion, has immortalized all that for years through his lenses. So he definitely knows and has experienced the work from a different viewpoint. I remember him hanging from various hangars and cranes so as to best viewpoint, and actually his photos are a landmark by themselves. So we have the opportunity and the happiness to hear from excellent participants, and what we can definitely see is their enthusiasm, even 5 years after the completion of this construction. I warmly thank you. Good evening. I just learned that there's a small problem with my lip phone, so I'll be using this. Welcome, all here. Let me say that I'm extremely glad for being in this panel. It's not only a big honor, it's a tremendous joy. And I'm certain that we have come quite earlier so as to get prepared, but I saw that this joy is shared by all. It's as if we made a class reunion. It has been indeed an excellent school, a university, this construction. It taught us things on the best way by having a best of times. Not only did we learn, but we also had huge fun. So without further ado, let me introduce, first of all, Vassily. Do we have Vassily with us? Yes, there he is. Vassily Laffineur from the Renzo Piano Building Workshop. We have him with us from Paris. He tried to be here, I must say so. He tried to be here, but unfortunately he didn't manage. Vassily is an associate of the Renzo Piano Building Workshop for a number of years. He will be the first to take the floor, and he will speak about the construction, the design principles. Immediately after, we will have Dr. Theodoros Maravelias, who is an architect and head of the technical donations of Stavros Niarchos Foundation from 2004 and onward. Then the floor will be taken by Elli Pagalou, who was in charge of the landscape design, jointly with Deborah and Nevins. And we will conclude this wonderful evening with a doctor, structural engineer, Mr. Gregory Penelis, who was in charge of the static design study of this wonderful building. The main thread, however, of this, or the main aspect of this event is that immediately after the 4 presentations, we will have 30 minutes at our disposal for your questions. Therefore, brace yourselves. Please get prepared for these questions. Vassily, you have the floor.
And thank you very much. Good evening, Kalispera to everybody. Thank you, Elli, for your kind words. I have to say also, I would have really liked to be with you physically tonight, but unfortunately I couldn't. But as you said, during this all this year working on the project, we did an amazing job. But we also gained at the RPBW a lot of friends, and this is very important. So I would make you short presentations about the basic concept of the project and the architecture. So let me start by sharing my screen. And talk to you through the project. So for us, this project was a project about the city and the sea, and the city of Athens, so the scale. When we first came to the place, it was the old horse race of Athens, so it was a completely flat land with no connection at all with the sea. So it was, for us, the first concept was to work with the topos, to work with the ground and the landscape, and to give back a relationship to the sea. So what we did is we worked by creating a hill. So the hill would give a view to the sea and a relationship from the city to the sea, and also a view to the city. Because as you know, Athens being quite a flat city, it's rare to have a viewpoint to the city from a building. What we try to do is working with a building, but is doing a park. So how do we create a hill on the place by this gentle slope, which is, by the way, a natural form, is what we call catenary. So which is given by this really simple gesture of lifting a sheet of paper. So how then do we insert this building into the park? So we decided the strategy was to do both, to do mainly a park and to have the building buried into the park. And it's important to understand, so we really were present in the site during all the construction. So it's this project basically has a duration of 4 years of study and 4 years of construction. And during those 8 years, we were very, very present in Athens. So the main point, as I say, is the park. So for us, we always like to understand a point of comparison and what is an urban park. And we had a good examples being from Paris to compare the size of the Luxembourg Garden in Paris and the size of the Stavros Niarchos Park. And as it was also, let's say, it's not quite, it's the same size, but also the shape was very similar. So for us, it was also funny to understand that afterwards. So the park, as I was saying, what we wanted to do is to work with, and Elli would be more precise on that, but to work with plants, shrubs, trees from the Mediterranean region. So we wanted really to design a park that would look in 100 years if it was always there. So for us, it was very important to work, and to work also on the sustainability approach and creating some green area, planting a lot of trees, and also something which is very important, creating the canal. The canal for us, it's an important device, not only, let's say, metaphorically, because it brings back the relationship with the sea and the contact, and it was, if like the sea was coming back to the site, but it has also some impact on the temperature of the building, because due to its orientations, north-south, and with dominant wind in Athens, in the summer, it's cooled down the area of the agora, which I will show you in a minute. So then the park, and how then the two main entity, because the program was to make, it was a triple project, to make a park and to make the National Library of Greece and the National Library. And what we did is we didn't really make two separate buildings. They are merged together and they are covered by the park. And then, which is very important for us, they are separated with a public space, an agora. Those two buildings, for us, was really important that from outside, we had a clear understanding about it was an opera and it was a library. So, but then also they were linked together. So we developed a structure hanging from the roof, which footpaths that from outside you can see and understand. On the right side you have the opera house, and on the left side the opera house, and on the right side the National Library, and in between this public space, which is the agora. The opera house, for us, To design an opera house today was also, let's say, a search about the past and the future, which is also something that we did during all the study of the project. We took that for us what's really important from the past and what was the root of the place, and we try to make it in let's say, in a modern way, in a contemporary way, and for the future. So what we understood for the opera, that's it's the main auditorium is for 1,400 seats. We work with the horseshoe shape, like in the classical opera, but we work also with a lot of people from consultants and especially acousticians that did some measure in the theater of Stavros and try to find what was the main important things over there, and that we try to replicate the acoustic in a contemporary hall. So we try to capture the atmosphere about what is an opera and what could be an opera. So we work with the shape, but we work also with the color and the atmosphere of the opera. So for us, it was important. The color was something very important. We wanted to work with a red that was reminding to everybody, this is the performance, this is the opera, and at the end, this is what happens. We also try to work in a more, let's say, contemporary way about what used to be a lampadier. And instead of having a chandelier in the middle of the room, we had asked a Japanese sculptor called Tsujimu Shingu to make us a sculpture that is going up and down for the performance. And this is, let's say, our interpretation of the chandelier. We also designed a room for 450 scenes, which is a multi-purpose room that is supposed to work for performance, but not only. So it was very important to have this flexibility in the use of the space. And of course, we also designed all the back of house of the opera for the artists to make their life easy and make the performance better. The library. The library also, how would you describe today a library? For us, the main idea was to create a book castle. So a book castle basically means that from outside, you will see a volume full of books. And you would understand immediately from the Agora that this is about book, this is about culture, this is the National Library. During the design also, and thanks to the foundations, we really want to have the publics coming into the library. So the ground floor and first floor were dedicated to public activity. And during all the development of the project, we had a lot of good and dense conversation with the foundation about the use of the space. And then the lighthouse. This is the space where you are today. We call it the lighthouse. This is Stavros for you. And this is the space for us. It was the third and the special place on top of the building, where you are connected from the Agora with a bridge that maybe some of you took tonight to go there. This is about lightness, this is about view, this is about framing. Framing to the sea, framing to the city, and also activity. What kind of activity we could have there? In our visions, we designed this space to have, as it is today, and I'm sure this is working pretty well. I would be glad to be there with you to understand if it's really the case, but it's a space designed for different activity, exhibitions, and lecture. The transparency and the slenderness, which is also part of the design. And maybe Gregory would explain a little bit more in details, but this building is based on seismic isolator. And what does that mean, or what doesn't allow us, is to design very slender structure, a very, very, let's say, thin facade made of with glass mullions. So you can see it's very transparent today, and it's not oppressive. So from outside, you can really see through the whole building. And this was really, let's say, a main concept of the building is always the possibility to see through different layers. And again, let's say the verticality, slenderness of the structure, everything is light, everything is flying. The canopy. The canopy has two main functions. First is to provide some shadow in summer, to frame the landscape all around, and also to produce some energy covered, because it's all covered by PV panels. You have 100 meter by 100 meter structure, which is covered by PV panels. The structure of the canopy was quite an adventure. We work with something that is basically let's say, a poor technique working with ferrocement, which is usually not used to make such a big structure, but we wanted something that lasts forever. So we work with this technique that needs a lot of labor, meaning a lot of people have worked on the solar canopy. And at the end, a pleasure also was to go on site to see all the people working on the site, and they were proud. So a lot of people had the opportunity to work, to have a job, and they were proud about what they were doing at that time. And at the end, we were also proud to have designed such a structure. Again, the slenderness and the development of the structure, the connections, and also something which I think you can see even at night, the reflections of the roof that reflects the landscape and the light. And again, as I was saying, this canopy is a machine, is production of electricity. So we have specially developed an area which is experimental area to work on the next generation of solar panels. And also it's a sensor, and the mast that you can see here coming on site is actually something that gives you the direction of the wind every day. And again, just let me share you this last picture, which I'm very proud of, is late Sir Richard Rogers came on site. And his reaction after one day, really one day, working on the building, just before its completion, saying that for him it was one of the most exceptional buildings that he saw. So thank you very much. Thanks to the foundation to give us the opportunity to have completed such a beautiful work.
Vassily, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
We warmly thank you, Vassily, and I personally thank you because you observed the time allocated to you. And I would like to remind all the next discussants to observe the time allocated. So following the presentation of Vassily, who spoke about the design principles, the overall design, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Theodore Maravelias, who will give us the harsh aspect of what it is to manage this huge work site with all its complexity and all the intervening factors. So Mr. Maravelias, you have the floor. Thank you. I took the permission to use the podium. No problem in that, but you only have 10 minutes. Please don't forget it. Good evening. First of all, let me warmly thank the coordinators of this event for the invitation and for hosting this event. In this successful construction, the project management paradigm greatly contributed. This was a paradigm planned by the foundation and the Cultural Center SA in cooperation with the company Faithful and Gould, which undertook its implementation. In the few minutes I have at my disposal, I will try to give an overall and succinct picture of this management model, and I will also present some of the major challenges that this management was faced with. I ask for your comprehension beforehand for the very quick exchange of slides that are to follow and the very succinct reference to the content, but I will be at your disposal during the discussion that is to follow to give you in details any complementary information is asked. I believe that in order to understand the innovative practices of the project management paradigm that we applied can be attained through three pillars that contributed in shaping the implementation framework. And these pillars are the main principles of the project set by the foundation that set the goals. Second, the timetable that gave the methodology for its construction. And third, the high demands in architecture and construction that defined the principles applied. The philosophy of the foundation that applied in all its works are focusing on three main goals. The first goal is the completion of the project within the timetable and within the budget set and within the quality and operational standards and the respective tools of the project management in order to attain those goals is setting the appropriate contracts. The second goal set by the foundation is full transparency and efficiency and effectiveness in managing the project, and therefore the basic tools for that was the business information management and the Aconex platform. The third goal is promoting the worksite principles and the LEED Platinum accreditation process. The foundation approached this project on open processes, exploiting all the opportunities that can be offered by the international experience in these projects, as well as Greek engineers for the best implementation of the work in local conditions. For this reason, the timetable from the onset of the intention of the foundation in 2006 until its delivery to the Greek state in 2017 was a 10-year plan, from the very first inception till the end. With regard with the management plan, I refer to three themes. The first was securing construction quality as one of the primal factors for the sustainability of the project. The other theme had to do with environmental protection and respect to the surrounding community, and the third was responsible for the implementation of the very modern worksite practices, technologies, and innovations. In order to secure the quality in the worksite, there was a full test lab, fully staffed and fully equipped for monitoring and securing the quality of the construction, especially of geotechnical constructions and concrete constructions. The foundation ground is one of the worst possible because it is under seismic activity. For this reason, thousands of columns were used of various materials in order to boost the underground. And each pillar and each column has undergone special construction and stress tests. The buildings are founded on seismic isolators. Each one has gone through exhaustive tests so as to have full accreditation. Quite important in selecting the quality are the various maquettes created in order to test the quality result. You see some of those specimens. Unfortunately, the speaker does not change the slides, and therefore we can see nothing of what he's now describing. Oh, yeah, says the speaker. Now I realized. I apologize. I apologize. I apologize. These are the various specimens that were constructed in natural size in order to test them. And I just mentioned the energy canopy. The energy canopy will be presented by Mr. Penelis. Now, these high environmental goals were according to the LEED environmental accreditation. This center was the first cultural project in Europe that was accredited with LEED Platinum. Through this success, the cultural center was an innovative paradigm in pursuing and implementing environmental sustainability. Following the completion of the cultural center as a green building, similar accreditations were pursued and taken by a large number of buildings in our country. The LEED accreditation introduces a lot of environmental appropriate practices whose implementation is the main priority in the project management of this project. I will give you succinctly some of the most innovative such practices, especially those concerning the respect to the surrounding community. The plot where it was built, actually, it was a place, a wasteland, we might say. The first thought, therefore, was to sanitize the earth. That means, however, that hundreds of lorries will burden the surrounding community. So it was decided that the best solution was to make a distinction between the earth and the waste. Therefore, thousands of waste was seized and the healthy earth was used again. The very heavy lorry of the worksite, before leaving the worksite, will fully cleaned. Various filters were set so as only to have filter water sewage entering the sewage network of the city. Continuous measurements were made in the neighboring communities so as to control the noise. And most importantly, there was a bridge, a pedestrian bridge constructed so as to have full access to the sea. This was never interrupted. And I apologize again, I forgot the slides, says the speaker. Yes, this is the bridge. Other innovations that were applied were multiple on many occasions. For instance, electronic management of documents through Aconex. We'll say a couple of words on that. The high technology of construction of the heel, which does not allow for the fluidity of the substratum and protects the park against demolitions. The system of seismic isolators, which allows for, of course, for the high aesthetics of the lyric building as designed by Renzo Piano and mentioned by Vassily Laffineur. There were 11 cranes operating at the same time. The system against floods in the park, including the canal, the energy canopy that we mentioned, but I would also like to mention the implementation of very strict rules and methodologies for the protection of the environment, which were just mentioned, and for the respect to the neighbors, and most importantly, the opening of the worksite to the citizens as an open-air museum of construction, so as to have a first-hand experience on the matter. This more than 70,000 visitors paid a visit to the worksite. And finally, the open cement reinforced concrete, which was a great headache for many constructors. Some of them are present here and have, of course, the memory of all these things I mentioned today. I would like to conclude by pointing out that one of the most important and innovative tools introduced by the project management in this fund is the modalization of the building information through the Acconex platform with a very austere clause that non-electronic processes of plans and contracts will not be contractually binding. Therefore, Acconex allowed for more than 75,000 contracts plans to be disseminated between hundreds of engineers and contractors. Nothing needs to be disseminated on paper. It was the first time that a fully reliable and fully fledged electronic file of the project was delivered to the state. This most innovative management contributed to deliver the project within just 15 days, while usually this lasts for months or even years to have such a project officially delivered to the state. Some other construction innovations unfortunately have no time. I will not argue anymore giving you that, but I would like to conclude by merely saying that the project management attained its mission for three reasons. The first reason is that there was a very happy cooperation and joint mission by all the contributors of the project, by the foundation, the Greek state, the project manager, the engineers, consultants, the construction company, but also the technicians, the labor, the manpower. The third is that it had the guidance and encouragement to innovative construction and management project of the two main contributors, Renzo Piano and Andreas Drakopoulos. And the third is that the Greek society, to its majority, embraced the project right from the start, which helped in the very smooth construction and completion. Thank you. We warmly thank you. And now we give the floor to Elli Pagalou, who, along with Deborah Nevins, was in charge for the design of the big park, Stavros Niarchos. Good evening. Since we have a celebration, I thought that we might take a tour around the time and the park so as to see how this work was born. And let me mention that one of the main characteristics of this project is the common understanding and the common vision that led us all and guided us through the planning and the construction, with an excellent cooperation with the construction company, all the contractors. Let's move back in time. We all know about the Failure Bay, which used to be, before the land fillings, it was neighboring to the sea, precisely where we are now seated. Then, going through centuries, this place, this site, was the site of the horse races. In 2004, it was transferred, the esplanade was designed, and then, until the construction of the cultural center was launched, it was just a desert area, a desert flat area, a huge parking, and unfortunately a huge dumping space. So, reaching there, and in reference to what Vassily mentioned, what's most important is the relation of this site with our city, with ourselves, and its relation to the sea. You must have heard Renzo Piano saying on multiple occasions this anecdote, the first time they paid a visit, about the name of the Kalithea, which means a good view, and the need to acquire again our relation to the sea. The photos that you see in this presentation are taken by various people. Most of them, however, and the most important one, are by Yiorgis, who have here as coordinator. So let us have a bird's view before we start the construction, when we start shaping this hill. As I told you, this was the result of a joint effort, of a vision, common vision of the cultural Stavros Niarchos Foundation and its people, and a broad interdisciplinary team of planners and engineers at a site of 210,000 square meters, where the construction started in 2012. The study started in 2009, and from 2012 till 2016, the construction was completed. With references to this hill, which offers again access and views to the sea and an open-air urban public space, which follows the main principles of a Mediterranean hill, starting from the northern part of Calithea and gradually mounting this hill through a series of bushes and trees of different characters that we are to see. What is special about this park? It's one of the first urban open spaces that has direct references to the Mediterranean landscape and to memories or experiences that we experience, our visitors and ourselves. Main points of this design was its sustainability, the terms that had to be observed both in the construction and planning regarding international standards in environmental and landscape, the counter flood works, the canal as mentioned at the extreme northern part, how we collect the water and give it back to the waterbeds, as well as the rational use of water in relation to the species that were selected and the appropriate management of irrigation. I give you here some elements, some designs where you see the detail of the project, and in order to see that the main principle was to have it accessible to all. That's why you have no inclination more than 5% for this hill. It is a very smooth hill. We still fly above the park. These photos are a travel to this wonderful work during its construction. As it was said, it observed all security measures, safety measures, and we see gradually how it is shaped. All of us, it is a team of constructors and planners, always observing all safety measures, hygiene and safety measures like helmets and appropriate footwear and so forth. Let me give you an experience. I appeared on a walk site, and then someone in charge said, "Oh," and I asked him, "Why? Do you feel any pain?" He said, "Well, we have now to protect the trees and wear helmets." So this was indeed the model. And therefore, there was also physical kind of maquettes, natural specimens in scale 1:1. This was very important. Whatever was planned was first tested in construction before being fully fledged, implemented in big scale. And please see one of the most important elements, which was the plants that were used. These are pictures from Greek nurseries, and the standards were introduced was to have the trees on equal distances so as for all of them to have full area for breathing and developing, to enter this special system so as for the roots to develop and grow accordingly, to be supported appropriately. And again, these pictures from Greek nurseries and summer houses, Marathona, where you see the production of plants on specific dimensions and on forestry pots, which are oblong and allow for the development of roots in such a way so as for the plants to seek for less water, with tagging for every single plant and signalage on bushes. That was an innovative work, not only for Greece. It is with great joy now that we see in other projects presenting and giving the same standards. It was really innovative, both for Europe and the USA. And here is stroll on the on the terrace of the National Library. We know that in a Greek hill, the higher you go, due to the winds, you don't find trees, but you find the most resilient flora. And therefore, the higher you walk, you go through a low bush meadow. In order to create this meadow, we cooperated with the University of Athens, the forestry school, that collected seeds from Attica and the Aegean, and then we created small nurseries. Again, pictures of nurseries from Mesologi, and I have to make haste now, I know. Again, a bird's view above the park. You see how this park was created with wonderful photos by Yiorgis, Yerolympos. You see the nurseries and how gradually the paths are laid with specific floor, with water permeable material. The flora is purely Mediterranean, and this is the ascent to the hill, going through what I said beforehand, going through the olive trees and this meadow of low plantation. This was the intermediate zone. What lies below them? Excellent insulation, of course, perfect insulation, and excellent infrastructure. This is a picture of the parking lot, which is also planted on top. In order to have these various inclinations, we used insulated and floating material, and the substratum is for sewing it. And what I also like, I go behind people and visitors to see the courses they follow. This is one of the favorite ones. I have seen that, again, above the opera house and the terraces. So seeds from various plants and flowers, wild flowers, were collected. Now, seeing this is a photo of the seeds that one can find scattered in the park. You realize one can see in the morning whether there have been groups of friends or solitary visitors the previous night. You see pictures from the various seasons, and here pictures from the construction. Again, a wonderful picture by Yiorgis, where we are close to the maze. And this is the way the plants were set one by one, showing the patterns of sowing. Again, on the big open air, under the shade of the pine trees, or close to the olive trees and the lavender trees for play or reading. Here you see the playgrounds. Instead of the classical practice to use plastic for the equipment, all the tools of children's playgrounds are natural material, and there's no plastic, not even recycled caoutchouc. There are small pebbles and appropriate standards, and this allow for full penetration and outflow of water. Photos from the use of the playground, which is extremely popular, and the various times. And now moving to the fountains, small fountains, which is also amongst the most popular spaces, especially in summertime. The chess, the open air chess, which was again an addendum on the encouragement of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, and the sports facilities that are on the western part of the park, close to the municipal park of Kalithea. Shade under the trees, and the bicycle route. There is a cyclic one that will in future will be connected with a municipal bicycle route that is envisaged for the whole of Attica and leads us back to the sea. One of the visions of Renzo and the whole team is for the canal to be used for sailing lessons. Some of the group, because as I told you, this group has many members. All the people that have worked in this, that have created this community, this fraternity, I might say. I'm always touched when I meet with them again. And on August 16 of 2016, there was the official inauguration of the park delivered to us all, and in February, the delivery was performed, just as like today, to the Greek state, that is, to all of us. And these are photos from the first events in the park, and there it was the biggest, the most touching moments in 2016. And now we can go to the technical aspects that Grigoris will present. Thank you. Thank you, Elli. So, Grigori, you have the floor. Grigoris will speak about the static solution, construction solution of this miracle that we have above our heads, and the whole anti-seismic protection of this building. Grigori, you have the floor. Thank you. As it happens with all the others, it is a huge joy for me and a great emotion, but also I feel great honor for participating in this commemoration that this project that was delivered to all of us, to be amongst these distinguished colleagues and friends now. I must say right from the start that it's not only us, some of us are amongst the audience that have greatly contributed in the construction of this work. Some of them I will be mentioning along. I will focus on the canopy, which is, as we said, from ferrocement, as it's called. It is the biggest construction from ferrocement at a global scale. As Vassily said, it is usually used for small constructions, handmade constructions. Here we transformed the use of this material. We have a surface 100 by 100, that is 10,000 square meters, and it is a clear opening between the columns, 75 by 50. In order for you to get a grasp, a construction has openings 5 by 7. A big building has openings 9 by 9, 9 by 15. An airport, for instance, the biggest the biggest span is 9 by 15. Here we have 50 by 75. Imagine, this is one of the biggest spans worldwide that we might have. It has the shape of a ship, of an airplane. It has an opening. Its middle has 4.5 meters of height, and at the gutter it has only 30 centimeters of width. It is a mixed construction. It is a ferrocement. It is a metallic special network, of which the two endings is of ferrocement. It is actually hanging. It has got 30 columns, but they do not, it is not supported by them. It is hanging by those columns. So 100% of the weight is hanging from coils, and it is also controlled by 60 amortisseurs, because there must be energy dying. It is a machine, as Vassily has said. It does, because it operates as a machine. That's why we have these energy dampers, because it continuously moves. It was constructed through prefabrication. It was very handily and amply coordinated by Makis Perakis. 700 parts, 3.5 by 7, were related and connected above us, so as for the final construction to have no joint. The overall load is 4,400 tons 4,400 tons. What is ferrocement? Why is it mentioned? I'll just tell you. It is kind of a cement dust which is being reinforced by a very thin sandwich of networks. They start a kind of mesh that start from a network of 1 millimeter until 1 by 1 until 5 by 5 centimeters, and they are just thus laid so as to have very thick networks in the center and very thin at the edges. The width of this whole thing is just 3.5 centimeters. That is 35 millimeters. That is, this is a slate of 35 millimeters. This is only it would be possible to have such a huge span. It's something extremely light. This is how the picture of these networks are, this kind of tissue, weaved tissue, actually. How was this planned? Is there a regulation planning that? Obviously not. There's no regulation. There are no standards. Rules and standards apply to established things, not to innovative things that are planned and decided by a brilliant architect, and then civil engineers, my office and expert there have to construct, because the real work of a civil engineer is to construct, to materialize the vision of an architect, of a brilliant architect. So we design by testing. This is allowed by the rules. So what do you do? Hundreds of tests. I'll show you, for instance. First of all, I'll show you what we call the column heads that the 4 big coils have. You see, in the University of Thessaloniki, in scale 1:1, you see such a column head, and this is how we tested how it moves. You see the thrusts? You'll see in this white point how it is shifted, how the control pad shifts in relation to the sliding surface. What does this mean, that it moves? What you see here precisely, it may have an oscillation of 10 centimeters, plus minus. It always happens due to wind, due to temperature, due to snow, whatever. This is only how we could have such slim, slender columns to have a building of an opening shaded by 100 by 100. Imagine that our house, a column is more than 40 by 40 in a 4-story building. And here we've got such slender columns. Now, the coils are something brand new. Not only the fact that we hang a canopy from coils, but also what kind of coils we introduce. We started with metal ones. They could not fit. Then we saw those of fluid nitrogen, but we did not want them because they would lose if we had the evaporation. And these are on fluid silicon. What is it? It's kind of a gum. But when they enter there in 2,000 bar of pressure, from 1,000 to 2,000, it becomes fluid. And therefore this silicon operates like coils or oil dampers. They can hold 200 tons each. This, what I told you, is the leakage test. When a fluid leaks, it's transformed into solid. And this helps us a lot, because if there's a damage, then it is not void. It's very important if the load is transferred within seconds or minutes. Here's the internal of the canopies with the coils in orange, so as to see them, and the whole forest of a space network. The Aerodynamic Tunnel, this was a test conducted in the Milan University by Professor Alberto Sasso. We have various from the construction team, Emilio Boteon, Gianni, who was from WeBuild, from the joint venture along with Terno. Then, the prefabrication. You saw quite a number of pictures from many with the parts in the prefabrication phase. What I can tell you for the construction is how we would do it to appear flat, because whatever one makes, when you take supports away, then it causes some kind of a belly underlying. So if we were to take away the work site in the appropriate geometry, in the final geometry, then it would get a propping. It would get a dropping. We would not want that, to have some kind of arrow dropping. If we did it and designed it with the revert arrow, the revert stinger, it would appear very low. So what did we do? We decided to create an inverse sting, and then we would put it upside from the work side. What would we do? We used the coils as pulleys in a specific methodology. We pressed this liquid silicone, and gradually it was elevated. This was important for the load transfer as well. How can we have it from 2.5 tons of the work site, how it will be allocated in the various columns? How was it that? That was effected through an important monitoring system that would do a 3D scanning every 2 hours of the form of the canopy. It will assess the load of the canopy with strange gauging, so as to see how much load was transferred to each column. We also saw the transfer of the column heads, the pressure on the coils, and every 2 hours I personally would go up and see which part of the scaffolding was taken away. In 5 days it had reached its final position, but we would not do the monitoring only then. We do it continuously. I show you a picture from the monitoring system of the canopy. When last month, when we had snow, there were canopies that fell. In Constantinople, the hangar, one of the big hangars of the new airport collapsed. So we followed and see how low our canopy went. It went down by 5 millimeters. That's the first line. And as you see, 10 days later, it is back to its original position. There's a continuous monitoring of the canopy. Why? Because it is an engine, as Vassily has said. It's not something stable. It's an engine. It's something live. In conclusion, I would like to say that beyond my thanks to the Foundation and the Cultural Center that invited me today, I owe a huge thanks to Kostas Vavalletskos that bestows his trust, because if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have made this construction. Thank you. I warmly thank you, Grigoris. So, the time for questions comes close, but in order to give you a couple of minutes to get prepared, I very well remember myself. I knew that when I was in conferences, I wanted some time until I could gather my thoughts and prepare my questions. So, allow me to take you to a small tour and make you understand why I was so deeply moved, those of us who are here on the panel, but also a lot of people amongst the audience. We have all seen very loving persons amongst the audience. So allow me to tell you why we feel so deeply touched. Those of us who have lived this experience have experienced this building in all possible moments you might imagine. I show you a picture when it was under torrid rain. We hear from the beginning, Mr. Maravelias were very clear of these renowned columns when all these machines came to drill holes on the ground, creating unfathomable pictures. We had in the work site machinery which were like UFOs. We were all impressed. Me, by looking at those pictures, I realized but the work that I had ahead of me would be very easy. There were amazing pictures ahead of me. Huge lorries and seas appeared. that were of sculptural properties. Everybody did that work, but at the same time, they performed this work, sheathing the earth with a high finesse, I might say. Mr. Maravelias spoke that at some point, perhaps he should have a camp bed somewhere. He was practically sleeping on the work site with this gradual uplifting of the hill, which was layer by layer, step by step. We gradually followed this project until we reached this nice view, as Renzo Piano, the big maestro, said. And we experienced this complexity for years and for days and nights. These are the renowned 11 big bridge cranes at the maximum of the construction, at the peak of the work. And I will always remember Michalis Papafilippou. Michalis is at the left, Yannis at the right. Every evening, at the closure of the work site, they would go around the work site in order to check that everything was all right. Michalis Mavaleskos was from the contractor, Salini, Intrailio, and Terna. We saw everything from the very depth of the earth and even below the last substratum of the opera, where, so from the bottom, from the stomach of the earth until its peak, this miracle of engineering that Grigoris has just described, the canopy. And for all this tremendous feat, many, many people have worked. So although my work all those years was creating architectural pictures or landscape pictures, when I received this extremely honorary invitation of the foundation by Elli Andriopoulou, Gabriela Triandafilou, and Silvia Iliou to act as coordinator tonight, I thought that this time I would not like to show architectural pictures again, but I would like to give my viewpoint of the construction side, of the people, of the work, of the people that were on the panel, the work of people that I have followed all those years. So the first conclusion, Vassily, is that I'm the only one who has grown old. All of you, just identical. They're all identical, which really proves who has worked in here. Vassily, this photo is the remote 2008, when Vassily, along with Giorgio, presented us the first time the future plan in the offices of the foundation. Some years later, we saw it on the site, at this same site where currently are. If you look behind the shoulder of Vassily, I think this is the point where currently are seated. Now, Mr. Maravelias, what can one say about Mr. Maravelias? I consider that this is the best worksite portrait I've ever drawn in my life. Theoretically speaking, you have to put 2 spotlights in order to have such a light on your beard. I don't know how we managed to grasp this moment. The very favorite duet of Deborah Nevins and Elli Pagalou. I had the opportunity to take photos of them on site, always between shrubs, hills, trees, amazing plants that would come a little before they were placed. And throughout this duration, where gradually plants started growing and or appearing in very imaginative ways, such as this olive. Many olives have flown over this work site. We are extremely tender. It's a little prince of Saint-Exupéry, the way this olive tree appears. And I have the great privilege to take the picture of the first olive tree being planted. The workers were still in fear. I remember them, and I remember before entering the olive, following Elli, giving instructions in degrees on how the tree will be seated. Each tree has been placed on very specific guidelines. They would go around, they will turn around the tree according to the guidelines, the directions by Deborah and Elli. The reason why I show this photo, because I have the opportunity to take pictures of all the possible controls and audits, all the prime ministers and presidents of the republic, even foreign people who were not even prime ministers at the time, as the current prime minister of Portugal. I had to do something to produce new pictures, so I decided a new way would be to take pictures of the people of the foundation. You see Mr. Maravelias, Mr. Acropolis, Mr. Cascarelli, Mr. Trochopoulos, and the current Prime Minister of Portugal in a form of rock band. And along with the previous generation of agents, we gradually started seeing the next generation of people of the project, of younger people that will take the torch and will be the future we all look forward to. Spiros and Agis. Spiros and Agis. I will always have the first picture when you have winglings of architects and engineers. And it is here that I first listened to Grigory in this space, this amazing lecture on something that did not exist as yet, would come. But the biggest honor when we had Renzo Piano on the worksite. Of course, he would come on multiple occasions, but the maestro himself, here is the first picture when he arrived, when I had the opportunity. And I had the great privilege to see him showing immense respect to the workers of the worksite, explaining and analyzing in every single detail of this extremely complex project, but also share what we have all said, all previous speakers have already said. And I reiterate that it's not solely the sufficiency and the quality in the work per se. You cannot imagine the ambience amongst the people working on the site. We really had huge fun. We had huge fun in our work here, and that's why you have this result. This picture, we have practically all we have Georgios, Cano, Yanni, Martin, Mr. Papaletskos is somewhere in the back, Nikos, Fedon, Mr. Maravelias, obviously, Andreas, Rakop, everyone is here. All the factors are here. We're 5,500 people at the peak of the construction. The names of all of them are alphabetically placed, as Elli has said, opposite the elevator in alphabetical order, from the great donors, sponsors, the engineers, the workers, the clerks, everyone. They are in alphabetical order. The people who have transformed an extremely complex, difficult, multi-layered construction and project, worksite and project, from this unfathomable semi-final to this final form. And each time I see or visit the cultural center, I always remember the definition of the successful public space as given by the French urbanist Albert Huet. He said that a successful public building is the one where the visitor believes that has always been there. I warmly thank you. Now I open the floor to you for questions, clarifications, whatever you ask. Thank you. Because Vassily will not be able to follow your questions unless you use the microphone, I would please ask you, whomever likes to raise a question, to wait for the microphone. There is a roaming microphone in the venue, and then you can raise your question to any of the speakers. Thank you.
Δεν έχω άλλη διάλεξη.
No other lecture. That's it. There's no other lecture. You have the floor. Does anyone of the constructors, engineers, factors, of the people that were there, that were with us, and is amongst us today. Would you like to take the floor? Could I please ask Mr. Vavaleskos to say a couple of words, please, because he was the heart of the construction engine. What I would like to say is that I would like to warmly thank the foundation, Stavros Niarchos Foundation, that offered us the opportunity to exceed ourselves. Because this is indeed what happened. This project was so unique, was so innovative for Greece and the world, a whole globe, that in order to achieve that, to attain it, we had to exceed our limitations, our potential. We really fell in love with this project, and we staged struggles to be successful. Along with us, all those who have worked in this construction have loved it. I characteristically remember the words of a workman, of a handyman, when I was going around the work site. He said, Mr. Vavaleskos, with this project, I became a far better technician. With this work site, I can now construct anything. Another happy conjuncture was the ambience amongst all, the harmonious ambience amongst the foundation, the project manager, the planners, and of course the constructors. I hope we will have the opportunity again to have one more such similar project, which can only be constructed through the foundation, Stavros Niarchos Foundation. Thank you. Good evening. This event was really touching, and I remember the following. Some years ago, I saw in the Munich sculpture, the Glyptothek, the ancient sculpture gallery, and during the presentation of Manolis Kores, presenting his book about the restoration works on the Acropolis. And the title was From Pentelli to the Parthenon. And he described everything from the quarrying of the time till the construction of this amazing and technical work. I felt the same emotion following the creation of such a technical work. I felt the same emotion today, because I firmly believe that it's most important to view this whole course of the construction of an important work, not solely the last result. Congratulations to all. Let me raise a question to Mr. Maravelias. We have already discussed that, but I would like it to be voiced publicly. I remember it from the case of Thessaloniki, where I was living at the time. In a country where people are neighboring major work sites, complain and cause huge roar and reactions. Could you please explain, elaborate to the public why there has been no reaction in such a huge work site from the neighbors? In order to be absolutely frank, there has been one protest. There has been an email that we received at some point from a couple that lived nearby. The email wrote, the way I see it, I see too much concrete. We don't see any park around. We only see concrete. The immediate reaction of the foundation was to invite all the neighbors of the work site. I remember at the visitor center, which had already been constructed, was constructed from the beginning, so as for all the planners and constructors of the project and especially the people that were in charge of the landscape, to fully explain what was all about. I remember characteristically that couple with whom I've had quite a long discussion. This, of course, was also, if you like, watered with some wine or whatever. At the end, they were the most enthusiastic supporters of the project. That was the only protest, the only complaint we ever received, at least as far as neighbors are concerned. There was a very tangible respect to the neighbors. The company, they would see that there was continuous cleaning of the sidewalks. Whoever has lived close to the worksite at the time will obviously remember that. Therefore, one thing that I have in mind is that a lot of things which at the time were taken for granted in the construction industry were fully reverted by this worksite for the benefit of the environment, the community, the respect to the neighbors. The fact that 70,000 visitors walked around a walk site in a character of an open museum has really shielded the project against any eventual, or if you like, usual protests and problems that might appear as they appear in big construction projects and work sites in Greece. Suffices to mention the Acropolis Museum. There were hundreds of lawsuits against it and many judicial battles and 3 times hearings in the state court. Nothing happened in this one, but this was not by chance. This was from the very first amongst the planning of the project management, which started from the very first date of the inception of work and ended, the management ended at the date of the delivery to the Greek state. Will you let me raise all the questions? I'll feel insulted if I am to raise all the questions. No microphone. No microphone. Allow me remarks as we've got the time. The canopy and its construction costed many white nights in the project management. This I have to say. And the constructors, of course. I remember because there was such huge agony. It was a construction never seen before. There was no precedent. We had so many meetings, Mr. Penelis remembers that, where we expressed in many different and varied ways the various stresses, agonies, and concerns vis-à-vis this canopy. At the end of the day, the insistence of Renzo Piano, insistence and persistence, and the very systematic work by the structural engineers, Mr. Penelis, his father, whom we had a professor, who had many meetings with them, eventually convinced us on the feasibility of the construction. But we went through many concerns, great agony and white nights. Yes, it is precisely as it is said. I say it quite often in various lectures I give. It's true, one of the biggest construction groups had asked to be exempted from the construction of the canopy in the form it had. Brasilo, along with Turner, assumed responsibility to materialize that, and they very well did so, because at the time they thought nobody could construct it. It was something extremely important. Even more important was the fact that a well-established architect wedged his fame. Renzo Piano did not need the canopy to create his renowned fame all over the world. The fact that he placed a wage on his world fame that this canopy can be constructed and put pressure on all of us to find a way to construct it is very important for someone established, because he also took a risk. Renzo Piano took a risk as well. It's not only us. The most famous of all was obviously Renzo Piano, and he risked his fame. And we have to reiterate that. He did not play it safe. And this is how we've got this so impressive landmark, because someone really risked high, placed the stakes very high. Yes, and let me ask Vassily before liberating him. All these years, we've obviously met Maestro Giorgio and you. Is there someone from your team that I forget to mention and that you would like to add? Someone's name that I should mention from your team?
I mean, you can. You hear me?
No, no.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So of course, also I have to remind, and also that we were not alone. Beta Plan actually play a huge role in this. So I know that Eleni is here today. I don't know because I saw her in the audience. So Margarita. I don't know if Yanis Ventourakis, Margarita, Andreas from a Beta Plan team are here or not, but they were really part of the team. And even during the study and the phase, I remember Margarita came to Athens to work in our office physically. And I have to say that even today, I still have her keyboard, so that I kept for that time. So this is funny, but we had a really, really good collaboration. And from our team, also Sebastian, that spent a lot of time there. And also we were, at one point, we were 20 people working on the drawing of the Stavros Niarchos, because it's a huge project, you have to remind. I often make a joke in Paris, because it's a comparison that I can make here, but it's like if you start to, or you think to build at the same time the Bibliothèque Nationale François Mitterrand, the Opéra Bastille, and the Jardin de Luxembourg in one project, which for Paris are 3 flagships. So if for some of you that know this city, it's amazing. It's, of course, one-time experience for everybody that work on the project, but even for our office, it's something that's exceptional. So, and I would repeat it, but I think all of the panelists today told them it was made in a great joy for everybody, from everybody working on the project. And I repeat it again. At the end, we start a project with some colleagues, and we end this project with friends. Thank you.
Okay.
We have said on multiple occasions during this presentation today that this was a project that was a university that brought together people from different countries and various disciplines. And I would like a last phrase from Elli, because there's no better connection of this connection than that between you and Deborah Nevins. How two persons cooperated the way you did so as to bring this project into materialization. So you have the last word. Yes, I believe it's what Vassily best said. We started as colleagues, and we concluded as being close friends. Debbie, who is currently in New York, just sent me a message telling me, when are we going to Crete to see? Because Crete has one of the most, of the richest flora, and we have promised each other that we will go and make full coverage of all the wildflowers of Crete. So, going through great tensions in selecting the plants, the trees, decide the canal of the cement, the canals, drying canals and so forth, we reached, after great tensions between us, we reached to a great love affair, and I would send her now pictures of my lettuce meatballs, what this project really opened our eyes, opened our horizons, let us become better people, exceed ourselves, and have references in our lives of the excellent cooperations and friendships. I warmly thank Vassily for being with us. I warmly thank Mr. Theodore Maravelias, Elli Pagalou, and Gregory Penelis. I warmly thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Cultural Center. We thank you warmly for being here this most important day for us. Have a nice evening.